So today we're going to go through we've talked about how to add and subtract polynomials. Now we're going to go through and talk about how to multiply polynomials together. We're going to use the distributive property, excuse me. One way you can do this or show how to multiply is by using algebra tiles. You're not going to have algebra tiles at home. So instead I'm going to use a table. So we're going to skip over the algebra tiles and kind of show you what this looks like. So you multiply with a table, you take the 2x, we put it on one side, and you take the x plus 2 and put it on the other side, and we make this table out of it. Well, to figure out what goes in this box right here, we're going to take the 2x and times it by the x. That'd give me 2x squared. Over here in this box, we're going to take the 2x and times it by the 2, which should give me 4x. That's my answer. It comes out to be 2x squared plus 4x. When you multiply by a monomial, remember a monomial means one term. That 2x only has one term. All we're really doing is just using what's called the distributive property, which means I can times the 2x by the x, 2x squared, 2x by the 2, 4x. So this expression and this expression is the same thing, but down here we've multiplied it out, right? We've multiplied that 2x, which is a monomial, by the x plus 2, which is a binomial. That table is another way to kind of look at it. We're going to use that a little bit later on, so I just wanted to kind of introduce it to you. Okay, let's just do a couple of the distributive properties. So all we're doing is this. We're going to say, right, 3 is out in front. It's a monomial, just times it through. So 3 times v is 3v. 3 times 2, 6, and we're done. There's our distributive property. Let's skip ahead a little bit. We'll try one that's just a little more challenging. Let's do this one. So now I still have a monomial. It's got one term in front, but I'm timesing it by a trinomial. It's got 3 terms. So we need to distribute, multiply that all the way through. So we're going to go 7 times 3n squared. 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 4, 28n. And 7 times 3. So just distribute that all the way through. There's our answer. Let's take this one. This one's a little more complicated because of the x cubed, but we're still just going to distribute. Pause the video and you give it a try. Like multiply it out, and then I'll work through it and you can compare your answers. So we're going to take that 2x cubed and multiply it by, first, by the 6x squared. Just be careful. 2 times 6 is 12. We're good with that. When I times x cubed by x squared, remember our rules. We're timesing things at the same base. So we just, right, this is on our last test. The base stays the same, and you add the exponents. 3 plus 2 is 5. So we end up with 12x to the 5th. Okay, then we go 2x to the cubed times 8x. That would be a 16. X cubed times x to the first, right? The base stays the same, and you add the exponents. So it's x to the 4th. 2x cubed times 4. 2 times 4 is 8. And it's still x cubed. Okay, and we're done. So distributive property. As long as you're timesing by a monomial, we just distribute it through. It gets a little more complicated when you're not timesing by a monomial. And I'll show you what I mean. If we end up having a binomial, right, 2 terms, times a binomial 2 terms, it's just a little bit different. So I'm going to show you a couple different approaches to this problem. One is using a table, then there's a couple others. One's just using the distributive property, and one's using a method we call FOIL. So let's start with this one. If I multiply x plus 2 by x plus 1, what I'm really doing is taking x plus 2 and then multiplying it by x plus 1. So just split these up, just like we did before, into this table. So first I start right here. To get this one, I have to times the x by the x. So that would be x squared. To get this one, the 2, I have to times the 2 by the x. That'd be 2x. To get this one, I'm going to times the 1 by the x, 1x. And to get this one, I'm going to times the 2 by the 1, which is 2. Okay, my answer, we're going to combine all that together. So I have x squared. The 2x and the 1x are like terms, so you can add those together. So that'd be 3x. And then I've got that plus 2 right there. Okay. So there's my problem multiplied out. So that's what it looks like if you use a table. Let's do one more, and then I'll show you how to do it using the other methods. So this one I've got x minus 3, so I'm going to put the x and the minus 3 up here. and I've got 4x minus 5 down here. Okay, again, split it up into a table. Okay, to get this one, I times the x by the 4x. That would be 4x squared. To get this one, I times the 4x by the negative 3. So 4x times negative 3 is a negative 12x. To get this one, I times the negative 5 by the x, minus 5x. To get this one, I times the negative 5 by the negative 3 and get a positive 15. Okay, now combine it all together. I've got the 4x squared. These two are like terms. They're the same. So if I combine those, minus 12 minus 5 is a minus 17x. And then I've got that plus 15 there. Okay. Why don't, this one says use the distributive property. So let me show you that this is the second method. You're just going to distribute. And what we do is this, is you take the first term here, the 2x, and I multiply it by that second polynomial. So multiply by the 3x minus 7. Plus, then I take the second term 4 and I just distribute it through. I times it by the 3x minus 7. Okay, distribute, that would be 6x squared minus 14x plus 12x minus 28. When you're done, always make sure, after you multiply these out, make sure you've combined like terms. We've got like terms right there in the middle, the minus 14 plus 12, so this would be 6x squared minus 2x minus 28. Let's do one more of those. So we're just going to use that distributive property again, and then I'll show you the last method. If you want to, you've seen an example now. If you want to pause it and try it, you can, and then just watch and see if you end up with the same thing. So all I'm going to do, take my first term, and I have to times it by the 4x plus 3. Then take my second term. Be careful with signs. There's a minus there, so I'm going to times by a negative 6 times the 4x plus 3. Okay, now distribute it through x times 4x, 4x squared, x times 3. Okay, distribute the negative x through. That'd be minus 24x. Negative 6 times 3. Just be careful with those signs. Notice when I times by the negative 6, it's going to flip both those signs. Okay, if there's any like terms, combine them, and those two are like terms. So I'd end up with the 4x squared minus 21x minus 18. Okay, there's our simplified form. The last method is something called FOIL. And the reason why they call it FOIL, let me get to a problem where it says that. Oh, here we go. Is FOIL is an acronym. So it's not an actual math term. You know, that's not actual math terminology. But it's an acronym to kind of help you remember how to multiply it out. I don't think you need an acronym to remember how to do this. But if it's helpful to you, that's great. You can do it. This is the way it works. So if you wrote down FOIL, the F stands for multiplying the first two terms together. And what it means by that is you multiply the 5x and the 2x together. So 5x times 2x is 10x squared. The O stands for the outside two. So the outside two would be those two, 5x times 1. That was just 5x. The I stands for the inside. The inside two, that would be those two right there. So minus 3 times 2x. Be really careful with signs. That's probably the biggest mistake I see on these is we just get kind of careless with those. So it's a negative 3 times a positive 2, so minus 6. And then the L stands for the last. So you take the last two terms, a negative 3 and the plus 1, and multiply those together. That ends up being a negative 3. Make sure also you always combine like terms. Those two are like terms. So I end up with 10x squared, actually minus 1x. I was going to put a plus there, but 5 minus 6 is a negative 1, right? So minus 1x or minus x minus 3. I want you to try one. So try one of these using the FOIL method. Let's have you just do, let's do B right here. So give that a try using FOIL. So pause the video. Work it out, and then I'll work it out, and you can compare your answer to what I got. So I'm going to take the first term n and just distribute it through. That'd be 4n squared minus 7n. Then I'm going to take the minus 6 and distribute it through. Minus 24n. A negative 6 times a negative 7. Just, again, be careful with signs. That's a positive 42. Okay, look for like terms. Sometimes there won't be, but in this case there is. Minus 7 minus 24 is a minus 31n. You still have that plus 42 in the end, and we've multiplied it out. So those are your 3 different methods. I don't care which way you do it. You could do it with a table. Some people really like that. The distributive property and FOIL are really, really, really similar. There's not a whole lot of difference between those two. But you know, whatever you feel comfortable with, I would recommend trying a couple problems with each of the methods, see which one you like best, and then I'd probably just stick with the one you like. Anyway, that's multiplying polynomials. That's going to be really important that we understand how to do that. It's usually most of us do really well on that, but if we understand it really well, that will make it easier when we get to factoring, which is what we'll be doing next. Okay, thanks guys. Appreciate you listening.